again, everyone. Welcome to Calimesa Insider. I am Will Colville, City Manager for the City of Calimesa. This is our 30th episode for this Friday, October 25th, 2024. So I'm just going to say it up front. If I'm sounding a little off and quite frankly a little grouchy today, it's probably because I'm not feeling well. I started coming down with something yesterday. I powered through the day, but kind of got a little bit worse. I did take some Dayquil, so hopefully that will kind of kick it at least enough to get through this episode, and I can go back and get some rest. Before we get into today's main topic, which I have some frustration that I probably want to air out a little bit on some things that have been said on social media, which I know we shouldn't react to those things, but I think it's always also good to, when you see things that are blatantly incorrect, we need to do something to correct them. Speaking of corrections, I have a correction on last week's episode. So I gave a preview for the council meeting last week, and I had said that we were having an agreement that the council will consider with the city of Yucaipa. I had said it was for the intersection of Calimesa Boulevard and County Line Road. That is incorrect. We will be doing an agreement with them for that, but it'll be a future agreement. The one that the council considered at this past Monday's council meeting was an agreement relating to interim traffic signals at Interstate 10 and County Line Road. So as people know, there is a big warehouse that Yucaipa has built just outside of our city limits, on the south end of their city limits, just to the west of Interstate 10. And so that will obviously have some tremendous traffic impacts on Calimesa because it's only way to get to the freeways through County Line Road, which obviously sits in Calimesa. So we got them to agree that they can't take, that the warehouse cannot get a certificate of occupancy until a traffic signal is built at both sides of the interchange, which will help improve traffic flow. So they're having an impact on traffic, therefore it increases the traffic count. So we need to have additional traffic control measures to be able to process that. Ultimately, there will be additional improvements down the road, but these are interim improvements, just like with Cherry Valley Boulevard and the traffic signals down there. Those are just an interim solution. We're in the middle of designing the ultimate interchange improvements at Cherry Valley Boulevard. We're not that far down the road with County Line Road yet, but we will be going down that road eventually with County Line Road as well. So just wanted to throw that out there. So that agreement was approved by the city council, and the city of Yucaipa will be considering it at their first meeting in November. So in a city our size, well, most cities really, keeping up with social media and what's said in social media and all the different message boards and groups and pages that are out there is impossible. And it's amazing how misinformation and bad conclusions from that misinformation get halfway around the world before the truth can even get its pants on. We've heard that lies get halfway around the world before the truth can put its pants on. So we've heard that saying, and that definitely applies here. And yes, we have a small staff. We only have one person currently doing social media for us, so that makes it even harder. But most cities struggle with this. There's just so much information instantly out there that people, can sound, they can say they sound like they know what they're talking about, but they don't. And then but when you do address things head on, and they don't like what you have to say. They don't think it's correct, or it contradicts what they believe, and people don't like to be contradicted. They get defensive and call you a liar. Even if I have all the backup in the world to back up what I'm telling you is the truth, it doesn't matter because it contradicts what I think, and I know better than you, because especially in government, because we're just a bunch of idiots, according to a lot of people. So that is very, very frustrating. People also jump to conclusions despite a lack of knowledge or expertise on a subject. They think they know or understand it a lot more than they do. And maybe they have a good way with words, so they type and write eloquently. So others who admittedly don't have that knowledge tend to believe them because that person seems like they know what they're talking about. Therefore, they must be right. and this is the first I've heard of it, so therefore it must be right. So this has come up just today. I wasn't actually sure what I was going to talk about today on today's show, but this came up today. It was brought to my attention. And it has to do with County Line Road. So just before we get into what was said and kind of my reaction and kind of getting to what the actual truth of that matter is, I just want to do a quick history since I got to the city. So I started with the city in late November of 2022. And if you want more detail on County Line Road project, you can listen to episode 8, where I gave a complete history of it from its conception to the agreements that were signed and the timing on all of that, in the different iterations those agreements to the grants that we got for it, to actually starting construction. So you can listen to all of that on episode 8. So when I got here in late 2022, Bryant Street had just been completed. California Street was in progress. When that was completed, they moved to 2nd Street. Right-of-way challenges at 3rd Street led us to skip it and go to 5th Street. After 5th Street was started and the street was torn up, and there was no more signal there, because remember, there used to be a signal at 5th and County Line Road. SCE said, we were ready for SCE to move their poles because we're already started work, and they said, oh, well, after further review, we hadn't done our review properly, so we have to do further review and design. So at that point, because all the roads tore up anyway, and our contractor's already there, it would have cost us a lot to have them leave and then come back later. We just said, go ahead and finish. Hopefully we can work through this with SCE, knowing that we are in the middle of construction. Hopefully we get put kind of the front of the line, and SCE will expedite this. Yeah, right. That never happens. So we get done with the project in late June, early July of 2023 with that roundabout. And then we were told the poles would be moved within a month. So we just left it closed. And then after that month was up, they said, actually, it'll probably be a few more months. It actually ended up being about another 6 months after that. So we partially opened 5th and County Line to at least allow some traffic to flow through and allow County Line to have traffic on it, although limited because we only had part of the intersection to use. And because of that, because it was only partially opened, we didn't want to start, and there were still movements that you couldn't make. We didn't want to start on 3rd until 5th was completely open. So our contractor stayed off the project, and they're off obviously doing other things. We're not the only project that they have. So, and then while all of this is happening, and we knew this a few years back, that South Mesa Water Company got a grant from the state to replace a water line of theirs. This happened also in 2022. Now, work should have started already. It should be done already. It shouldn't be a problem right now, but it took over a year for the state to process the grant that they had already received, and that delayed their work. So once that was straightened out with the state and the grant, they started their work, and they had their contractor on board, and they started the work. Well, since roadway had gone for so long with 5th, and 5th was now completely open because the poles had been relocated, they didn't have crews waiting to start 3rd, so that delayed things more. And so at that point, with South Mesa's project already started, we said, okay, we have to wait until they get down to the town to at least past 3rd before we start, because if we start before they get there and then they get there, there's going to be conflicts. And let me just put it this way, South Mesa's contractor is going to get their way. They are not going to wait for us. They're going to kick our guys out of the way to keep doing their work. So there was going to be a lot of conflict there. So since we knew that, we said, okay, why start our project if it's just going to create conflict? Let them get through there, and then we can start the 3rd Street roundabout, which is what happened. So now that they've passed through, we've started the work at 3rd Street. Now, once the pipeline project is done, once they lay the pipe all the way down to Douglas, it goes from Calamasa Boulevard to Douglas. Once that's done, then they have to go back and actually then switch over the old pipeline connections to the new pipeline and activate it, because you can't make the connections as you go, because otherwise people are not going to have water service. So you can't abandon the old line until the new line not only is laid all the way out, but then you have to make the connections to it, and then you abandon the old line. So they're going to have to go back down again, starting at Calamasa Boulevard, all the way down to Douglas to make those connections. But they expect to have that done either late this year or most likely early next year. So once that's done, we also have a stormwater line project between Calamasa Boulevard and just west of 5th that will improve flow with Calamasa Creek. That project should be going out to bid soon. We're still having to finalize plans with the Riverside County Flood Control District, yet another agency involved. Once all the work inside the street is done, then we can do the final pavement. Because we wouldn't do the final pavement if we just know we're going to have to tear it up again for all these projects that have utilities inside the street. So that's why there hasn't been new pavement laid, but new pavement will be laid. So everything that's on County Line between 5th and Bryant is not the final pavement. None of it is, because of all these projects. So once those projects are all done, and then we have all of the underground stuff done, then we can do the final cap, and that's exactly what's going to happen. So that is the plan for County Line Road. So very frustrating, taken way too long. We agree. You'll never hear any argument from us that we think that this thing has been going fine, because it hasn't. And I'm not going to sit here and BS you and say that it's been going fine, because it hasn't. There's been a comedy of errors here, but it's not a comedy of errors. It's not incompetence. To me, it's just bad luck, Murphy's Law. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong. That's really been the experience with this project. It's been snake bitten. And, we can Monday morning quarterback all we want, but we didn't expect Edison to be delayed in moving their poles. We didn't expect South Mesa Water Company to have a year delay in getting their grant. We didn't expect to have delays in getting the Calamasa Creek stormwater line project up and running. So all of these things have pushed our timeline back. But meanwhile, we do have a limit or a deadline on our grant related to the County Line Road project. So obviously, we're trying to push to make that deadline as well. So that's what's happening with that. By the way, there will be a separate project coming at Calamasa Boulevard and County Line Road in the future, but we're not going to wait for that project to do all the paving from 5th to Bryant. The 5th to Bryant paving will be done before that project is commenced. So one thing, though, that I got wind of today related to this project is some kind of accusation against our engineering department. And I say it's our engineering department because, once again, we are a small city, and most small cities will contract out for services like engineering. So TKE Engineering is our engineering department. They were made our engineering department years ago through a competitive process. Randy Anstein, as a matter of fact, was the city manager at that time. Bonnie Johnson hadn't even started with the city yet. So it goes back before my time. It goes back before Bonnie's time. It goes back to Randy's time. And there was a full RFP done. Several firms bid on the job, and TKE won the bid. So it's not like there was some kind of buddy system. It was done through a competitive process. Secondly, TKE is not the contractor on the County Line Road project, as has been alleged in this post, because the post is saying that it's a conflict of interest for TKE to be doing the construction on this project. They are not doing the construction. They did design it, and they are doing construction management and inspection and oversight of the project, which is always done independent of the contractor that is selected. The contractor that was also selected through a competitive bid was Roadway Engineering. That was done through a competitive bid process specifically for this job. So TKE, again, is our city's engineering department. In a larger city, let's say a city of the size of like Riverside, has a full engineering department that are made up of city employees that would be doing this exact same function for similar projects in their city. So TKE is an extension of city staff. Yes, they're a contractor, but again, they were selected through a competitive process. So This is no different than the work that would be done by a city's engineering department. They just happen to be our engineering department. So, again, I get this has been a difficult project to manage. And it's had a lot of moving parts. And a lot of things have not gone our way. I get it. But that doesn't mean that because we've had challenges and we're dealing with some organizations that are not always cooperative, and admittedly, our relationship with Yucaipa used to not be that great. The last year or so, it's gotten much, much better. But we still have South Mesa Water Company to deal with, who has, they always like to tell us that they have prior rights in our roads. So even if we had laid new pavement down, they would have still gone and torn up our street anyway, because they have the rights to do it. They will tell you. So because people are not happy with how something is going, they automatically jump to something's corrupt or there's conflicts of interest and everybody needs to be thrown out and put in jail. Like, what? Seriously? Are you serious right now? That does not make any freaking sense. And maybe it's not a lot of people, but there's enough people that say it, and there's even more people that read it, that it does warrant a response from us to talk about how absolutely absurd that is. And I get it. There are corruption that happens in city government sometimes. You can see what happened in the city of Beaumont 7 or 8 years ago with Alan Kapanikis. That was atrocious. And that was a nightmare for public administrators, because every time somebody like that does something, it makes all of us look bad. And it makes everyone suspicious of us. And I get, you should have, it's the Ronald Reagan mantra, trust but verify. Okay? But just because there are some bad apples out there, and there are, doesn't mean that every time something goes wrong or you don't agree with something, there's a public policy decision that's made that you don't agree with, doesn't mean that it's corrupt or there's a conflict or there's something illicit happening. So I want you to understand that. And this is why I do this show, because I want people to have information and understand how government works. And again, a lot of what I talk about here can apply almost anywhere. Yes, I talk about things specific to Calimesa because this is Calimesa Insider, right? You want to know how our government works. And you want to know what's going on with your government. And that's why I do this show. That's why I put so much effort into it. And I do it even when I'm sick. Okay? But please, if you hear or if you read something like this, please, please, please share this show with them. Because with every episode that I post, I'm putting more and more information out there for the public to understand what we're doing. I want to put together a sufficient library so that when something comes up, we can go, oh, listen to episode number 25, and you'll find out what that was about. So if you see something about our contracting when it relates to this project, please have them listen to this show. And if you were directed to this show by somebody because you did have that thought in your head and you still have skepticism about it, give me a call. Send me an email, wkolbow@calimesa.gov or calimesainsider@gmail.com. Either way, you can get a hold of me. Please give me a call. Please send me an email. Explain what your concerns are. Let's talk about it. Because I think that rather than jumping to conclusions when you think you know, why don't you come to the source and let's have a conversation? Now, again, you may still walk away thinking that this could have been managed better, and that's fine. That's fine. But let's at least agree that there's nothing illicit happening here, because there isn't. I can go on the record and say that with the utmost confidence, there isn't. So please contact me. Please contact the city and ask questions. Let's have conversations, because I think that's what's missing sometimes. So with that, I'm going to wrap up the episode. Thank you for joining us this week on Calimesa Insider. We'll be doing our second annual Trunk or Treat at Summerwind Park this Thursday, October 31st. That's Halloween, from 5 to 7 p.m. We'll have many trunks full of candy for your kids' enjoyment, including my own, as well as a pet costume contest and a spooky trail walk. So I hope to see you there. I will be out there, and our staff will be out there waiting to entertain you on Halloween night. The next City Council meeting is Monday, November 4th, the day before the election at 6 p.m. at the Norton Young Love Senior Center. You can attend in person or watch on the city's YouTube page by going to calamasa.gov/YouTube, then clicking on the live tab. This is Calamasa Insider Podcast. I am Will Coble, and we'll talk to you again next week. Have a great weekend.